Imagine a continent once divided by currencies: francs, marks, liras, drachmas, each with its own identity, strengths, and weaknesses. Now imagine that same continent uniting under a single currency, the euro. This is the story of how Europe undertook one of the most ambitious financial experiments in human history, and how it shaped the lives of more than 340 million people across 20 countries. Welcome back to News Nexus, your hub for global stories, financial insights, and deep dives into the moments that shaped the world we live in today. Today, we're peeling back the layers on the euro, how it was born, why it was created, and how this single currency transformed Europe forever. Grab a coffee, sit back. This is going to be fascinating. Before the euro, Europe was a patchwork of currencies. France had the franc, Germany had the Deutsche Mark, Italy used the lira, Greece, the drachma. Each country controlled its own exchange rate, interest rates, and monetary policy. But this system wasn't perfect. Every time a global crisis hit, whether it was the oil shocks of the 1970s, the collapse of the Bretton Woods system, or surging inflation, countries reacted by devaluing their currencies or hiking interest rates, making cross-border trade expensive and unpredictable. For businesses and travelers, it was a nightmare. Currency exchange fees ate into profits and personal budgets. Prices fluctuated wildly from one country to the next. And for European unity, it was a serious hurdle. A fragmented economy couldn't compete with global powers like the United States or Japan. The vision for a unified Europe was clear: a single currency that could simplify trade, eliminate exchange rate risk, and, most importantly, bind European nations closer together, both economically and politically. The euro wasn't just a financial tool, it was a political project meant to secure lasting peace and prosperity. The journey to the euro started decades before the first coin was ever minted. In 1957, the Treaty of Rome created the European Economic Community, or EEC, to foster economic cooperation and prevent another world war. But even then, the dream of a single currency seemed impossible. During the 1970s, European leaders experimented with ways to stabilize their currencies. One early attempt was known as the snake in the tunnel, which tried to limit fluctuations between European currencies. But this attempt failed, as countries couldn't resist devaluing their currencies during tough economic times. Later, the European monetary system was introduced, creating something called the Exchange Rate Mechanism, or ERM, to keep currencies aligned. This too faced challenges as countries struggled to meet economic targets. It wasn't until the 1992 Maastricht Treaty that the euro became more than just a dream. Leaders like François Mitterrand of France and Helmut Kohl of Germany believed that political unity required economic unity. The treaty outlined a clear roadmap to the euro, establishing tough criteria. Countries had to control inflation, reduce national debts, stabilize exchange rates, and maintain budget discipline. The euro was meant to be more than just convenient for trade. It was a badge of economic discipline, proof that a country could manage its economy responsibly. Joining the euro meant passing a strict economic test, and only those who met the requirements would be allowed in. On January 1st, 1999, the euro officially launched. But at first, it wasn't visible in people's wallets. The euro existed only for electronic transactions, financial markets, and accounting. Physical euro banknotes and coins wouldn't arrive until 3 years later, in 2002. At the stroke of midnight on New Year's Day, 11 countries locked their exchange rates forever. The Deutsche Mark, French franc, Italian lira, Spanish peseta, and others were converted into euros. This was one of the largest monetary transitions in human history, carried out with remarkable precision. Banks, businesses, and governments had to reprogram accounting systems overnight. Millions of vending machines, ATMs, cash registers, and financial contracts were recalculated to accommodate the new currency. The logistics were mind-boggling, but the transformation went surprisingly smoothly. When the euro notes and coins finally entered circulation in 2002, it was more than just a change in currency. People across Europe lined up at banks and ATMs to withdraw the new money, holding in their hands a symbol of modern European unity. National currencies that had existed for centuries were gone, replaced by a shared future. So, what changed? The euro eliminated exchange rate fluctuations, making it easier for businesses to trade across borders. No more converting francs to marks or liras to pesetas. Consumers could travel from Paris to Rome to Madrid without the hassle of currency exchanges. Prices became transparent, fostering competition and often lowering costs for shoppers. For smaller economies, the euro offered a sense of security. It shielded them from the dangers of speculative currency attacks. It allowed them access to lower interest rates and, in theory, provided more stability during global financial turbulence. And for the European Central Bank, headquartered in Frankfurt, the euro brought new power. The ECB could now manage interest rates for an entire continent, allowing it to guide the European economy on a much larger scale than any single nation's central bank ever could. In global markets, the euro quickly became the second most traded currency in the world, second only to the US dollar. Investors, governments, and businesses worldwide began to treat the euro as a serious and stable currency. It wasn't just money, it was a statement that Europe had arrived as an economic superpower. But the euro wasn't a fairy tale. It had cracks that only grew wider with time. The global financial crisis of 2008 exposed the eurozone's biggest flaw: one currency, but many governments. Countries like Greece, Ireland, Portugal, and Spain were plunged into debt crises. And unlike the past, these nations couldn't devalue their currencies to make exports cheaper or stimulate growth. They no longer controlled their own monetary policy. The European Central Bank, designed to control inflation rather than save individual economies, had limited tools to deal with the unfolding disaster. The crisis forced the Eurozone to make some hard choices. Bailout packages were created, but they came with strict austerity measures, leading to widespread protests, political upheaval, and deep questions about the euro's design. The one-size-fits-all model didn't always work, especially for economies with very different strengths, weaknesses, and structures. Yet despite these challenges, the euro survived. Each crisis forced new levels of cooperation, from creating bailout funds to strengthening banking regulations and closer fiscal monitoring. Today, the euro is used by 20 of the 27 European Union countries, forming what's known as the Eurozone. It is the world's second-largest reserve currency, used not only by Europeans, but also by international investors, governments, and central banks around the globe. The euro's influence goes beyond money. It is a symbol of European unity and identity. It appears on passports, on contracts, on airline tickets, and in digital wallets. It represents the idea that diverse nations can find common ground in pursuit of peace and prosperity. And the euro's story is far from over. New countries are still lining up to join. The European Central Bank is already exploring the idea of a digital euro. In the face of global shifts, from Brexit to pandemic disruptions to the rise of digital finance, the euro continues to evolve. The euro has faced wars, recessions, financial meltdowns, and political disagreements, but it still stands today. It remains one of the most fascinating experiments in economic and political cooperation ever attempted. The euro is more than just notes and coins. It's a living experiment in unity, compromise, and globalization. It helped stitch together a continent once torn apart by war and division. But like all experiments, it has faced, and will continue to face, growing pains. So next time you hold a euro coin, remember, you're holding a piece of history, a symbol of ambition, compromise, and the future of Europe. Thanks for watching this deep dive on News Nexus. If you found this video insightful, give it a like, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe for more fascinating stories from around the globe. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.